Welcome to Real Depth, the podcast exploring Christianity, philosophy, and personal growth. Join us on a journey to challenge your beliefs, uncover insight for daily life, and cultivate meaningful change. Thanks for joining us today at Lomker's Holler. Here with the majestic Jordan Lomker, and I'm Ross Breedlove from the Breedlove Tree. And we're going to get into some deep stuff today, learning about each other, uncovering hidden truths, and just exploring the general nature of the universe. You know, I think it's going to be good.
I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, it's going to be good. So Mr. Jordan.
Yes.
I hear that you're from Ohio.
I am from Ohio. I was born on the northeast portion of Ohio. Gets pretty cold during the winters.
Yeah.
Some long winters too. But
I hear you. I grew up in Pennsylvania, so 9 months out of the year, winter's pretty good. I miss it. Being down here in Tennessee, it's like
it gets pretty hot down here.
But it's nice. I like the four seasons for sure. But anyway, Ohio, you were painting a beautiful picture of Ohio for us.
Oh yeah.
The majestic winters.
Majestic winters. But yeah, a good majority of my childhood memories they take place in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, not a whole lot took place in the summer. Most of the time it's just so hot you don't really want to go outside much. But we spent a lot of time outside. Yeah. That was actually one of the funny things, the cool things about it was when we did grow up with video games and stuff, my mom never had to limit our video games. Like I see, like for instance, my cousins, they had to limit
a certain amount of time a day or something. Yeah.
Because we would play for like 2 hours and then we would just go outside. Like it wasn't.
But did you ever play video games outside? You're
yes.
Like, we can just combine them, right?
Yes. When Guitar Hero was super big.
Yeah.
We took it outside. And my brother, he was learning how to play guitar at the time. So he had this amplifier. We hooked it up to that and we would turn it up real loud and. Yeah, it was some
show the neighborhood how awesome you were.
Oh yeah.
Listen to us.
My mad skills. I'm an expert button pusher.
Masher.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I went to public school for 2 years, first grade and kindergarten. And then my mom pulled me out after to homeschool me, and I was homeschooled until graduation.
I see. I didn't know that.
I think I was being labeled a problem child of sorts.
In second grade, huh?
Well, in first grade.
Woo.
It's in teachers talk, so you know that is just going to snowball as it goes further down the road or whatnot. But I was not diagnosed, but the teachers were like, he needs to go get looked at for ADHD and he needs to go on medications and things. And my mom's
they tried
like,
to get me for that too. Yeah, like Ritalin. Put him on Ritalin. It'll solve all the problems. Come on now.
Yeah.
Kids are kids. They have energy. They should have energy. We shouldn't be cooped up in a classroom for 10 hours a day. Sit still and be quiet.
Yeah, well, I mean, some kids do learn like that, but not every kid learns like that.
Right.
And I was definitely one of those kids that did not learn that way. I like to be up doing stuff. And true, once you kind of like figure out the game of school, you know, like, because you have these kids that seemingly like, how is it that you could just go through life, not study, and you pass your test?
Right.
Yeah. Because there's a method to the madness, and if you can figure that out when you're really young, then you're going to do well regardless, but you'll still not learn anything.
Exactly. What are you getting out of it? Aside from the social experience, that seems to be maybe something positive from like the public school side, but like for when you were homeschooling, were you part of a group of other homeschool families? Or?
No, it was just me, my brother.
Okay.
And that was it.
You had your siblings at least, or your brother?
Yeah, I had my brother at least, but
Your brother is older than you?
Yes, by 2 years.
Okay.
The socialization I never really needed help with. I was always kind of like a social butterfly. I would go outside. I'd go down to the park and I would just start hanging out with whoever was there.
Yeah. Good.
Just
pick up, start playing.
Just kind of fade into the crowd a little bit. But
so that's something I've always struggled with. I could walk up and just start doing things with people, but it's like if I have to go up and introduce myself and say hello and like, what is the format for that? I'm always one for like, I gotta know what the structure is of what I'm doing. Give me a point-to-point conversation topic list. Otherwise, it's like, I don't know, but just to walk up and get involved, that was always easy. But to have a conversation, was always weird for me. But did you experience that too?
Well, actually, that kind of got harder as I got older because I think as I got older, I got more like self-conscious and I just like cared more about more things that didn't matter.
Right.
So, and I think that was part of the trap. But yeah, I mean, as a little kid, like you just walk up, hey guys, what are we doing? Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, right.
I'll be on a team, you know, or whatever we're doing. You know, and it was always easy because like you could recognize the games like backyard football, instant spotter, people dribbling basketball. You just walk up and be like, you guys need an extra player? You know, like that happens so many times where I'd just be like, hey, I can shoot hoops with you guys.
Right. Just go hang out. Well, and for me, I was never big into sports. Not that I liked playing, but I just didn't really know much about the rules and everything, and everybody just seemed to know what was going on. So I was like, how do I play? I
ask questions too. Like, I mean, because there were times where you're like, you enter in a backyard football thing, and then the kids are like, well, we're not doing tackle, we're doing two-hand tap. You know, it's like one of those things. You just gotta ask questions.
Yeah, right. No, yeah, you gotta ask questions. You pick it up as you go. I've always been more of the silent observer type, and I want to suck in as much information as I can
before you branch out.
Right, and I've learned over the years that's not. It's a good way to gain insight, but nothing beats the experience of doing it and interacting with somebody that has experience. You know, that's like you said, you just got to get in there and ask questions. So, did you guys have a favorite game that you liked to play growing up?
A favorite game?
Like you were talking about football, basketball. Did you ever invent any games?
We did actually. Well, I guess it wasn't like invented, but we did take a couple of brooms in the basement, and we would hit a soccer ball back and forth.
There you go.
And like try to get it into it's basically like a shrunk down version of hockey.
Right. Yeah, like some field hockey in the basement. Yes.
You just have a line in the middle, and then you're not allowed to cross the line. Right. But you have to score the goal, which is like a very small.
And I think that's early on. I started loving that kind of stuff, just coming up with new games, because it's like I didn't really understand all the rules, and I felt uncomfortable because I didn't, and I didn't want to look like I didn't know what was going on. So I was like, hey guys, let's make a new game. So and that was fun. That was always the most enjoyable part of being a kid with other kids, is just the imagination and just getting lost in this world that you're creating with each other. You know, I always love that. I still do with my kids now. I don't do it enough. I miss it.
Yes.
Miss the imagination time. But anyway, it's so your child homeschool from 3rd grade to 12th grade, or did you start in 2nd grade?
Started in 2nd grade.
Okay, gotcha.
And then made it all the way to graduation. Although it was kind of weird though, because I didn't technically graduate. I didn't have a high school diploma.
I see.
So when I went out into the world, I just first I got a job, and you'd be surprised how many jobs will just hire you without a high school diploma. You know,
you're alive, you're breathing, you're here.
Yeah.
You can have a job.
You're a body, get in the mix. You know.
Yeah.
So I got a job, and then was working a job for a little bit, and then went to the career center and got a GED.
Nice. What was that process like?
That process? Well, it was actually it was okay. It was, how many weeks was it? It was like 8 weeks or something. Okay. I had to take. Well, I took all of the classes up before. You could just jump in and take the test to get the GED, but I took the classes because I was like, well, if I'm going to try and pass this thing, I want to do it the first time around.
Yep.
So I want to make sure that I know everything that I know. But yeah, I mean, passed it with flying colors. I sailed right through it.
Nice.
So it was not hard at all.
I've heard that a lot from people that have gone through that program. They're like, it's really simple to get your GED. So it's like, I don't know. There's so many interesting flaws in the system, I guess.
I have to be careful with this because, like, you know, you don't want to get somebody to do something they're not ready for.
Sure,
But I would advocate wholeheartedly for, if you don't want to go through the high school career, or you just don't want to deal with it anymore, drop out, go get your GED. Everywhere, like the reason why they call it general education diploma, it's the equivalent of a high school diploma. Right. You don't need high school.
Right. But high school is good. If you're gonna go the GED route, I would recommend have a plan. Don't just be like, I'm dropping out and getting my GED. What are you gonna do after that?
Yeah.
Have a
have a plan.
Some design in what you're trying to accomplish, because I've been a chaotic being my entire life and just go with the flow. Whatever seems to be working, I'm gonna walk in that direction until it blows up, and then okay, let's shift over here. It gets very messy and uncomfortable and sad.
And sad.
There's a lot of sadness in that path, and it's self-inflicted, you know. And it doesn't take much to plan, but I think it goes back to my. It's always been hard to ask for help, you know. Now that I'm thinking about it, just like I never wanted to appear like I didn't have it together, and I was taught that from a very young age. Like, if you don't have an answer, make one up. Have an answer. Have some answer. Otherwise, you're gonna look like a fool or whatever. You want to look like you got yourself together. So it's
and I think that's a thing too. Is like a lot of people really aren't willing to look and be the fool. Right. But you have to be the fool.
It's valuable to be the fool.
Yeah, you have to be the fool in order to be the king, because the king just doesn't, go into there knowing everything right off the bat. You gotta look stupid occasionally so you can figure out where you're lacking and fix that problem.
Embrace the unknown. That's how
why they
you
say
grow.
that pain is God's megaphone.
It's interesting, and it's like it always, praying for wisdom or patience. We've got a friend climbing on the lens there.
Just a little bug.
It's out of the shot. It's good.
It's okay as long as
when you pray for wisdom or patience, those are whatever you're praying for. It seems like, in my experience, those are the things that you're going to get tested on. You don't just magically get wisdom and patience.
Yeah,
you get things that make you become wise if you allow yourself to open your eyes and open your heart and move in the direction that you are capable of moving in and grow. If you're resistant or run away from it, or you're afraid or just stand still or isolate yourself, it's not going to accomplish much.
So yeah, I think that was probably a big problem, as I spent a majority of my childhood with people telling me that it's not okay to fail.
Yep.
It's not okay to mess up something. You're gonna go through a whole lot of trouble if you just and a lot of it was like, it was much easier just to not do anything at all, because then you don't risk the trouble that comes from failing.
Isn't that what is that? Existentialism or nihilism? No.
Maybe nihilism. Well, nihilism is like nothing matters.
Right.
So why do anything?
Why do anything at all? Right. And it's I've always, from a young age, I don't know if I heard it first or I just had this thought. Get this little friend out of here.
He's gonna ruin it.
Be gone, beast.
Be gone, beast.
Oh, you're coming back, huh? Well, we're gonna.
He's like, I like the color of your phone.
So this is why people don't shoot outside. There's a lot of but it's fun, the unpredictable things.
Oh yeah.
Yes, existentialism, nihilism. I came up with this story when I was a young dude. I loved writing. That was always my thing, because I wanted to create stuff, but I wasn't very good at anything. My parents were like, well, try writing. So I started writing, but the concept that I was talking about, that nothing is perfection, because nothing can go wrong, but nothing happens also. You can't have life. there is nothing if there's nothing. But I came up with this story about this girl that she was practicing some sort of sorcery or something or other, trying to create a new universe, because I was always fascinated with the creation story. I was jealous of God for a long time because of this, because I want to create things by speaking and it become reality. That would be awesome.
That would be.
But this girl, her name is Cosette in the story. She's learning about these this magical practice of bringing life out of nothing, and in doing so, she's doing it without proper instruction, mind you. So you take a lot of risk going that way, but you can learn a lot. Anyhow, she delved too far too quick and got herself trapped in a realm of her own creation. And had to be rescued out of that place by someone more knowledgeable than her, a mentor of hers. But that realm never she brought it into existence, and it remained in existence, and part of her was always trapped inside of that place. So she had this ability to go kind of back and forth, and eventually this entity from the other side of this realm she created came to be a part of her life, and they had these crazy adventures together. And it was the water is pretty. The idea of this being that she encountered while creating this place, she didn't expect to have some consciousness in this new place. It was thought, oh, it's just going to be emptiness, but there's always something there. And what was that something? I think now, looking back as a younger person, I was always trying to fit God into these stories I was creating without saying it was God, and because there's part of us that's always calling out. At least for me, I've always been wanting the truth and seeking guidance from something bigger than me and wanting to be a part of something bigger than me. But I could never wrap my head around how to get to that point. I was always, like I said, I was jealous of God for this ability to create, and I was jealous of other people for their seemingly, like, how can you just have this relationship or have this belief? Like, I could never figure it out. But yeah, nothing is perfection. I don't believe that anymore. But
I mean, God never said in the creation story in Genesis that creation itself was perfect. Never ever said that anything was perfect. It was always good.
Right.
And the only thing that was not good was that man was alone.
Right. True. Yeah, and that seems to be an epidemic right now, for sure, is just the isolation, especially among men, that statistics that I've been hearing and seeing. I haven't done a lot of my own research on it, but I personally definitely was an isolator for most of my life. I just
kind of happened to me later in the story. Just kind of like,
yeah. What
went into my room a little bit, but
so let's get back to your where were we? We were homeschooling, playing sports, and
I guess that's
was
where
there?
we left off, though.
Yeah, you were having a. Was there, as a younger person, what was your relationship with God? Like, did that start out early in life? Or?
Well, it was, as a younger person, I don't think it was ever something that I really understood. Until like way later in life, like much closer to the present. Like,
yeah.
I think my understanding of God and what exactly God is and who he is to us,
right.
Like, it only came about like maybe so many, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, my relationship with God growing up is that, like, when I was a little kid, like, I did feel like a kind of closeness to God. Like, God was a personal being for me. Mm-hmm. And like we did go to church.
Okay.
I did go to the youth group stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It always seemed like something was missing. Like, there wasn't it just kind of seemed like I was expecting to find something specific,
right.
And it was just not specific.
Yes.
So I just was like, well, what is this even? Like,
yes.
how? And then it just slowly over time kind of fell out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then like went down the later into my teen years, went down the nihilistic kind of hedonistic road, mm-hmm. and just like gratifying, like instant gratification, self-pleasure, things like that. A lot of selfishness on my part. Like,
yes.
And it caused a lot of problems for me. I became, like, I guess you could say, like, a regular sociopath. Like, there wasn't anything that I was not willing to say or do in order to get what I wanted. And it was, and only what I wanted was never spoken out loud. I was always scheming, plotting, planning, to just, like, get to a specific goal in mind.
So what did Jordan want?
Well, that's the thing. It changed day by day. And that's the That's the hedonistic, it's a short-term gratification on your hedonistic
whatever
whims,
sounds good
just
right now. Yeah.
Whatever I want to do this week or this day. It wasn't even that far into the future. I never looked any further than what am I doing next
right now. Yeah. The next good thing.
The next good thing for right this moment.
Yep.
And if I couldn't get the good thing right now, this moment, brought on depression and things like that. And that's how I was living my life for a very, very long time.
Do you feel like the depression came from a place of feeling inadequate? Like you were supposed to have this thing? You're like, well, I want this and I don't have it, so now I'm depressed? Or how do you think that came about?
Well, I don't know. Got to think about that one for a minute. Maybe it was a little bit of like, I can't get what I'm seeking right now, so I'm sad about it. But then, like, not realizing that, like, you'll be sad for, like, 5 minutes and then you'll be fine, like, a little bit later, depending on what it is. But I think it also came, like, from outside sources kind of, like, pushing in, driving me inward. Like, for instance, we had mentioned that, like, you're told it's not okay to fail.
Right.
And things like that. So when certain events would happen and then I would fail at something or whatever, it was always, like, the worst thing that could have happened or something like that. Or at least... Yeah. Probably not for, like, if you ask anybody from an outside perspective, they'd probably be like, what are you talking about? It's like, it's all internalized. Yes. It's all perception on what you're feeling in the moment. And especially, like, with me being so selfish, it was kind of hard to project myself outside of myself to, like, figure out, like, look at the situation objectively and figure out the facts and, like, what's happening really. Mm-hmm. Instead of what do I think is happening? Because I spent a lot of time in my head, especially, like... Mm-hmm. Like, I would just be for hours sitting up in my room just alone, like, thoughts just turning. I'm like thinking up scenarios of situations that haven't happened. Yep. Creations in my head and like it making me feel some type of way. Yeah. So you just like drive yourself insane with these kind of things. And then to stop the thoughts, of course, you get into this pleasure-seeking realm. You get into the distractions. Like I spent a lot of time playing video games in my teen years. I wasted so much time with like YouTube, and like watching YouTube wasn't all bad if you were like learning something in the process. Like now, like all the videos that I watch on YouTube, I'm like learning something.
Yes.
But before it was like, well, I guess I was learning something too but it was like useless stuff. Like I watched all the videos on quantum field theory. Yeah. And like just learning, like, it's learning about things, but that doesn't really matter. I mean, like, sure, we can talk about quantum tunneling and how you can just,
Well, it's fun to get into that stuff because it makes you feel like you understand things.
Yeah, and then you're the life of the party. You can
right.
talk about some... Like, I was having the best time when I was out with my friends talking about what would happen if Superman punched you.
Yeah, you must have visited Reddit a lot.
Actually, Reddit didn't come until a little bit later, but it was always a decent place to find information.
I hear a lot of those types of conversations on Reddit, or I see them. I don't get on there too often, but what I do see is always these hypothetical situations. I guess it's because a lot of the stuff that I look at are like video games and anime, and then people get into these crazy discussions, like you said. What would happen if Superman punched Batman? And
I definitely participated in a lot of those arguments of like which anime character would beat who. Like,
right.
If you take this anime character, if you take Goku from Dragon Ball Z and pit him up against Pain from Naruto, then you're like, who would win there?
Such arbitrary nonsense.
And then you have to get into like, well, are you talking about season 8 or are you talking about season 2? Like,
what are they wearing? What direction is the wind blowing? Yeah, it's crazy. But so it makes me think of something. When I was after a couple of my kids were born, I was going to school, and I started a partnership with this older guy who was a software developer. And we started a business, wanted to create some video games, and we got going with it. But we got to a point where we decided to part ways, and a lot of it was because I spent a lot of time thinking about what I wanted to do, and we were accomplishing things. But he was like, you know what? He accused me of being a mental masturbator, and I'd never heard that until that time, and I was like, huh. That makes a lot of sense because, like you were saying earlier, it just you're spending all this time in your head thinking of these hypothetical situations, and there's this pleasure to it because you're like, ooh, I figured this out, or I solved this thing, but what purpose does it even have? Like, where are you? I mean, I think there is a place for it. Like, exercising your logic and your ability to reason things is great, but wouldn't it be better if you could attach it to something that had some substance and you're solving actual issues? I guess it gets to that point, or hopefully it gets to that point. But anyhow, it's have you ever heard that term, mental masturbation?
No, actually, that was a first for me.
It's an interesting one. I had to think about that for a while, but anyhow, so you were exploring the depths of your psyche, and you said you felt like you had a personal relationship with God. So during this time of exploration, did you ever explore theological or deity concepts?
No, I think it was after like a certain point that, well, like for instance, we reached a certain age and then we just stopped going to church. Like as a family, like I think it was just something my mom got tired of because my mom kind of initiated the whole thing, and I think she gets tired of like trying to get her family in action. We're all a bunch of procrastinators. We're all a bunch of
of artists.
Yeah,
huh?
But well, not, I wouldn't say all of us are artistic, but it was just like, what am I trying to say? It's like inconsistency is a very big issue.
Okay.
So. Like we would try to do something or set up a schedule for something, and then we do it for 2 weeks, and then just nobody would keep it up anymore because like a lot of the time it was just my mom, and I do feel bad about it now, like looking back that like I could have done more to like help that out, but it was just because I was such a selfish child that I just never made the connection like, oh, my mom's trying to do good for me, I should help her out as much as I can. But instead, I just did what I wanted, and I didn't care what she wanted.
You're immature, and that's something that I've had to wrestle with too. And it's only been very recently. I'm just 37 years old today, and I've only started feeling like I'm.
Oh, happy birthday, by the way. I don't think I said.
Thank you. I'm happy to be alive, but. I've been immature most of these 37 years. Only maybe the past 6 months, maybe a year, I don't know, 8 months, somewhere in that time period, I've really tried to think about, okay, what is it? How am I behaving? And I've always thought about it, but from the basis of I want to improve, not just I'm going to reason all these things out and think about them a lot. I want to take some action. I'm going to keep taking steps and keep improving and build on a foundation for myself finally, because it's like I mentioned before, I've been very uncomfortable and been unwilling to step out of my uncomfort to be a part of the world, really. Like only in very predictable circumstances. Otherwise it was like, oh, I don't know how that's going to go, so I'm just going to stay over here. But maturity is an interesting thing. Do you feel? How do you feel your path of maturity is coming?
My path of maturity, I didn't. I don't think I started maturing until we found out that we were gonna have my daughter.
Right.
You know, it was at that point where I was like, okay, we need to make some changes, some life choices, because like I don't want to screw this up. I want to be a good dad. I want to do things with my children, and I want to teach them as best I can. I don't want them to travel down the same road that I did.
Exactly, yeah.
Or if they are starting to go that way, to provide for them help that they, you know, and not like from some outside source or whatever. Like I guess I could say I want the help to come from me, but you know, like I want them to know that I am there for them.
Yes.
Type of thing.
Right. So you want to have a good relationship with your kids. Of course.
Because like I understand that like whatever, you know, this child like just wants the best relationship with me that they possibly can have, and I want to facilitate that as best I can.
Right. Yeah.
So, oh no.
There it goes. Farewell.
No.
It really wants to go.
But yeah, just when we found out that Kayla was pregnant, then yeah, that's kind of where it was like, a kick in the pants, and it was like, all right, I need to make some life choices. We need to decide. And actually, it was the finding out that she was pregnant was our kicker to move here. Because we already had the land. We were sitting on the land for like 2 years, and we were just like, making a plan here or there.
Here
like
in Tennessee?
Yeah.
Huh,
we had the land out here, but we also had the house in Ohio, so we were just living there. We would come down. We already we knew that we were moving down here. Right. It was just a matter of when. So
I see.
The plan was, we'll just come down every so often, do a little bit of work. We were able to set it up to where we could come down once a month for about a week at a time.
Okay.
And to do work, because we don't have any big machinery or most tools. I think the biggest and best tool that I've ever had in my life was a chainsaw. Ooh. That was the best tool that we had at the time. That was the so we got to work.
Yep.
Doing some stuff, and we knew what we were going to need.
Because homesteading sounds like it was always a goal for you guys then, or did it blossom into that?
Well, it was shortly after Kayla and I started dating that we, it'd be nice to have a garden,
right? Yeah, kind of makes sense.
Kind of escalated from there, and then sometime around. Well, I think it was definitely in 2020 when pandemic lockdowns, and we're like. Let's just go to the woods.
Yeah, right?
Let's just
there was definitely a call to that during that time for a lot of people because things just got crazy, it's the overreach of our big brother, and that's when we came from California out to Tennessee, and we were planning on moving, but we didn't know where we were going to go. We had talked about Tennessee for the longest time, but then it was like, well, we don't want to box ourselves in. We're going to go explore the world and find a place. And we came out here to visit some family, and then we were like, well, why don't we check a couple houses out? And one of those houses is the house we live in now. And it was just such a quick process. But
at the time, we were living in Columbus, Ohio. We were living in Hilliard, which is a kind of high tax bracket because the jobs we had were pretty good.
Okay.
Pretty decent. We lived within our means, but we were still, not a whole lot of extra money. But you would be really surprised, and I think a lot of people would be really surprised at what they can accomplish if they really tried.
Hear that? You need to try.
You need to actually you need to have a solid plan. You need to have a goal. That's the first part.
Exactly.
And you always want to work backwards, right? Come up with your goal. Determine what it is that you want.
Yep.
Then you make a plan. First, it's okay, this is the goal. How do we get there? And then you have it's like a line of multi-tiered. Each line gets longer and shorter. So it's the longest line is how you solve from where you are to the goal. Then the shorter line would be the in-betweens of that. First you got to do this, then you got to do this to make that happen. Well, how do you make these little things happen? Then you got to do that to make this little thing happen.
Right, and then engineering.
Yeah, and then it just keeps going down the line until eventually you get to where you're at. And then you're okay, so the best possible thing for me to do right now is that.
Yeah.
So we just we determined our goal, which at the time we didn't know that we wanted so much land.
You just wanted a garden.
Well, yeah. So we bought a house. That was the first thing.
Okay. In Ohio first.
Yeah. So we had thought of this. It was shortly after that we had moved to Columbus because we moved for the job opportunity.
Okay.
And what was it? Very quickly learned that we are not city people. Just do not too many people. Too much traffic, too much noise, lights everywhere.
Right.
It's
not my environment either.
Yeah, it's not something that we wanted to be in forever, but we knew for the time being, because this was the best opportunity that we had, so we're just gonna stick it out for a little bit. So we started making plans, and it was later in the year of 2020 we finalized the buy on our house, and then we moved into it.
Yep.
Let's see. I changed jobs because I was working at a Cinnabon in the mall.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, very very high quality job.
Yeah,
let me tell you.
Right there.
Yeah,
That's
high profile. I was a very important individual.
Yeah.
But
did you eat a lot of cinnamon buns?
At the time, yeah. This was before I developed my allergies.
Oh, true. That's right. Maybe that's why. Oh no.
Oh no. Yeah. I've always had a sensitivity to gluten. So because I'd get like this rash on my arms that they call it chicken skin, but I can't remember what it's called, the scientific term for it. But I would get that, and I had it for like the longest time as a child. But you know, everything was fine, but it was when we were living in our house that we discovered that, well, I just can't eat bread. You know, like it was a horrible process. I'll get into that later. But,
yeah. So that was the first time that you noticed that was an issue, or you were having these rashes even earlier in your life?
That was like in my childhood where I had these these little bumpies on my arms.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay. Yeah, it was said that it was a gluten sensitivity, but we just never thought anything about it because it wasn't like severe.
Yeah.
Until it became severe.
I see. So it progressed as you moved through life. I see.
But yeah, so we moved into our house. Where were we in the story?
All right. We were, you had taken the job in Columbus. You just got the house. Cinnabon was going great at the time.
Yeah, it was going fantastic.
Fantastic stuff. Lots of frosting.
Management actually tried, because we thought we had a good relationship with the management, with the like not the owners directly, but like the director of operations and whatnot.
Okay.
We thought we had a good relationship with them. Like we thought
were you both working there?
Yeah, Kayla and I were both working there.
Is that where you met?
Yes, actually, because it was when I was out of college. I got a job at Cinnabon because I needed a job and needed money.
Yeah.
And Kayla was just a lowly manager at the time, and then she ended up becoming the general manager, and then that's
did she
when
train
we made
you
the move.
when you went there?
No, not her specifically.
Okay.
I was trained. She worked at the Annie Ann's mostly because they were.
I see.
They were
joint. They're owned by the same. Company.
It's the same corporate that owns them.
Oh,
and
it is.
And then they're a
I
franchise,
see.
so
They're
it's like a
corporate
different company that franchises the.
Interesting.
The business,
Cinnabon and Annie Ann's are.
They were one and the same.
Interesting. Do you know the name of the parent company?
The parent company? Oh, Kayla does.
She better.
Yeah. I can't remember, but it's an umbrella company.
Yeah.
They own a lot of the different stuff, but so we thought we had a good relationship with them, but then we told them that we were like, hey, we're moving out of the city, it's just way too expensive. And what was it? We were paying almost $1,000 at the time for our rent in the 2-bedroom apartment we were staying in.
Okay.
Which it was nice having a 2-bedroom because we had our bedroom and then I had my office.
Ah.
So that was pretty cool. I had my gaming space.
The gaming
space.
lair.
Yeah. So we had told them, well, this was a mistake, but we told them prior that like, hey, we're planning on buying a house in the next coming months and moving back to our original location.
Yeah.
So our store's there. Like, is there a place for us there, or do we have to? And they of course didn't, because we had moved to Columbus to open those stores.
Right.
So they wanted us to be there.
How long into that experience did you have this conversation? Since you had moved and opened the store?
About a year.
Okay.
So we had been there a year.
Right.
I mean, I worked for the company for like 4 years.
Prior to that.
So yeah, so they were obviously not happy with the fact that we were abandoning their brand new stores, and that, you know, I think it had something to do with the turnover rate was pretty dang high because you can't get anybody to stay in a job, and you're hiring all these teenagers and they're just not about it.
Yeah. Yes.
So yeah, the reliability would just plummet as soon as we left. So that's what I think what they were trying to fight against. But they had conversations with us, you know, trying to convince us like, hey, well, why don't we work something out? Like, you stay, but we were just like, no matter how much money they offered us, we were just dead set about not living in the city anymore.
Right. It was about more than the money.
Yeah. So we were like, well, no, we would just prefer to go back to the original location, and you know, that's where we were buying the house, was because it was closer to her family and,
I gotcha.
and things like that. So what was it, something that the mortgage company needed from me before we could get the house financed was a proof of what's the word, it's like proof of job or something like that.
Proof of employment,
occupation,
sure.
So basically I just needed a written letter from my boss to them, so sent in an email or whatever, so that they could verify that I had enough income to buy the house.
Right.
Which I did.
Right.
However, we told them that like, hey, so we're gonna like bamboozle the mortgage company, you know, as soon as we secure the loan, we're gonna move into the house.
Right.
Because that was like a big thing. They were like, well, currently are in Columbus, and then this is all the way over here where, you know, are you going to commute like 2 or 3 hours every day? And I was like, yeah.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Confidence.
Yeah, like, I'm going to keep my job. And so, yeah, basically they did what I had asked them, but then they sent also the information that I was quitting. So then that created a hiccup. Huh? Yeah, that created a hiccup in the process, and it was suspended for like 4 months while I found a new job. So yeah, so I had to go out to where we were gonna live and then look for a job around there, do the interview process. I ended up finding I worked a security at an oil refinery for a little bit, and that was my job for a year after that.
Is that what you were doing when, or where?
We were working at Cinnabon Indians when the pandemic happened, if that's what you're asking. Yeah.
No, when your daughter was born.
Oh, when my daughter was born?
She was born already out here? Yeah. Okay.
See, that was the thing. So we lived in that house for a year or so. So yeah, we moved in late 2020, and then we lived in there, and then it was April of 2021, we bought this property out here.
Okay.
Because we were like, well, we're thinking about doing stuff, and, you know, like, at this point, Kayla and I are getting pretty like, all right, we got to change our life tactics, you know, like, what do we want? We want a family, we want gardening, because like at this point I had already gone through my finding out of my issues, so we were like, okay, so diet has to change. Well, it would be easier, and we'd get away from all the processed garbage if we stopped going to the grocery store. But we only had like a 6,000 square foot lot was our house property, so it wasn't
that's
it's very tiny. So we had a small garden in the back corner, but then we were also kind of like in the ghetto. We had a good street. Our street was relatively okay, except for one neighbor that was always causing problems. Yeah. And it wasn't even like the guy who lived there or the mom, it was the kids. There was just these 3 kids that oldest one was like 14 and already a felon or something like that, had spent time in jail. So it was like, they were just always causing issues. They had their little gang that would come over, and they'd be like 4 a.m, just all like shouting in the front yard. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't miss that either.
So yeah, we're just like, you know what, this probably wasn't the best location to move into. So we're like, okay, so we have needs. What is the best for that? I was like, oh, land is still relatively cheap in Tennessee. Why don't we go look down there? So yeah, 2021 we found this place that we call Lomker's Holler. And yeah, so we were sitting on the land. We didn't make the move until January of 23.
Oh, really? I see.
So yeah, so
during that time, you said you were coming down and working on things here, like a week out of every month.
Yeah, it was just a week out of every month.
And what was it that you were preparing to be able to move here? What were the things you were focused on?
So where we're building the house, we had to first clear a lot of that land because it was all overgrown. The property had been owned previously by a logger.
Okay.
So they did select cut of all of the pine, and they took all of the pine and I think a bunch of oak. Okay. Well, we still have a ton more oak.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did select cut. And then we're selling off portions. I think the portion that we bought from was like originally, it was like 4,000 acres or something that they had. So yeah, they were just kind of like, oh, take your pick, you know?
Yeah, which section do you want?
Yeah, that was basically it. And we called up we looked at a bunch of properties down here. So like we came out, it was Kayla's birthday is March 31st and mine is April 7th. So our birthdays kind of fall into the same week there.
Right.
So we took the week of our birthdays as like a vacation or whatnot to come down here. And then we spent the whole week like talking to multiple people, checking all kinds of different tracks out.
And did you know you wanted a certain amount of land or land with water?
We said we wanted at least 20 acres and definitely running water.
Right.
Which is what we're sitting in now.
And what do we call this grand flow?
Well, our neighbors, because it flows off of from their property, they call it Split Rock.
Split Rock.
Yeah, okay. Split Rock Creek is what they call it.
Split Rock Creek.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great place to sit.
Yeah,
I have to say
it is nice. It is very good in the summertime.
You can get a chair here for $5 a month.
You know, that might actually work.
You can visit for 5 minutes a month as well. There's a road over there. Yeah, call this guy.
Call this guy. But yeah, pretty soon we're gonna have people like, "Are you serious?
I want a chair, man. Do I get to pick my chair? I can make chairs.
I can make chairs.
You can make some great chairs out of the wood here.
Especially because I think some of these, I don't know if it'd be this one, but this, hickory.
Yeah, okay.
If you can make some good furniture out of hickory.
Good wood. Hardwood.
But yeah, so we came down that week to look for some properties. We knew we wanted at least 20 acres, so all of the places that we were looking for. And we found some like pretty not good spots. Like the pictures made it look so much better than it was.
Oh man, the angles, the lighting, they know what they're doing, these tricky photographers.
Yeah, these tricky photographers. We found one. It was 50 acres. And it was relatively cheap, and we were like, hey, we might do this, because it had like a beat up old trailer already sitting on the property, and we're like, hey, it's already a place for us to live while we build like a better structure and things. And it already had a barn on it.
Nice.
And we were like, hey, but the barn was like, it was not safe.
It's not structurally sound.
Yeah, not structurally sound. I can probably show pictures later. I think I still have them, but
okay.
Yeah, so we went
Check those out here.
We went into this trailer and we noticed like, well, there's a lot of water damage in here. We were like, what could, like, what was happening? And so we went walking around the property a little bit, and it was like this massive clearing, like this huge field. And I was like, Kayla, look, it's like it's all ready for us to plant. Like the wheat's growing high here, like it's already good. We went walking through the grass. We found there was a creek that went through the side, and we were like, hey, this is cool. And then we were looking around at the grass. And we were like, oh, because there was a lot of signs like all over the place. And then you as you looked further down away from the creek, you noticed all of the water. And we were like
sitting.
Yeah, and we were like, this place floods.
Yeah.
We were like, and we thought about it for a minute. And yeah, you have to come down this like road to turn into it, and yeah, it is a big old bowl. I looked on Google Maps, actually has a feature for this, so we looked into it, and I was like,
topographic.
Yeah, we looked at it, like, yeah, it's in a bowl, and then turned on the floodplain map, and sure enough, the whole thing lit up, and we were like, yeah, no, can't do that.
That won't work.
And I was like, that's probably why someone came down with a trailer one year towards the end of the year in the fall time or something, then spring hit, destroyed.
I bet you roll the dice with this one. Yeah, that's you gotta put those things on stilts, people.
Yeah. And then you're gonna have to take a boat to work.
Yes.
But yeah, so that was obviously a no-go for us. But went looking around for a little bit. We ended up finding this place with the 4,000 acre tract or whatever, and it didn't list the whole thing. It was just like call for price or something like that. So we set up an interview or whatnot to come down and look, and they told us that, yeah, there's a couple creeks that run through. You just gotta find them in certain areas. So we cut off the portion that had this creek on it, and then there's another one that runs behind our house that feeds into this one.
Right.
So we were like, hey, this spot's perfect. We'll cut up this, and they said that if you buy more than just the 20 acres, we'll take the price down. So we were like, okay. So we ended up with 105 acres by the end of it. So yeah, it was it was pretty good. Easy financing too, because like it was like a big network where you had like the real estate agent, the financing agent, and
they were ready for it.
Yeah, if you knew that you were going to need it, an excavating company, like so. It was that's like great. They had all of these things, and then they were all together in this little.
What kind of loan was it? Do you know that you got for the land?
It was a land loan. Because it didn't have any structures on the property. It was all raw land, so you can't get a traditional mortgage for something like that. Yeah. So yeah, it had to be a land loan, and that land loan had a variable interest rate.
Ooh.
And it's kind of killing us right now. But
yeah,
when we get our house finished, we can refinance for a secure rate, and we can have a little bit of a better payment.
And at that time, interest rates are going to be amazing.
Yes. When the housing market collapses,
it's going to collapse. The bubble's going to pop. Interest rates are going to be like 0.3%. Nice. Perfect. Oh man. Yeah, that's variable interest rates are no fun. We've got a HELOC on our house with a variable interest rate, and yeah, it's
Is that on top of?
Yes, we have our mortgage plus the HELOC. So we've got 2 loans on our property currently.
Yeah.
And it's debt is fun.
Debt is fun.
I'm enjoying it. I'm hoping that's one of our goals this year is to carve build ourselves out of this nice little hole we've dug, which we do. It's a pattern I've noticed in our life, at least for me personally. Go into debt, build myself out of it, and be like, I'm never using credit cards again. Wait, I'm gonna use a credit card, dig another hole, build myself out of it. So we're in a hole currently, and we're gonna climb out as much as we can this year. And I don't know, how much exploration into the world of finance or monetary understanding have you dove into?
See, I have watched a few YouTube videos,
okay,
explaining these things. I've read some literature on it, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. It really opened my eyes to the whole world. Because before I even read that book, like when I was in college, I had no idea. That was something that I want to do better by my children, is better with finances and things like that.
Yeah, because, teach them,
like you only know, like you don't know what you don't know. So, if my parents didn't know a lot of the concepts of which they talked about in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then also like the types of ways like to start businesses and like how to not pay your taxes, like legally, how to not pay your taxes.
Imagine that. There's a system.
For it, and just the financial literacy was lacking in a lot of areas, and it just it followed me. That's a generational curse. It's just not passed on. So then they don't know, and then they don't know, and then they don't. But I want to change that. Yeah, exactly. I want to break the mold.
What seems like you're already on that path. In your family lineage, did your parents own a home or land or anything?
Oh yeah, my parents own their home.
Okay,
but they're still paying on it.
Yeah.
It was in the. I don't know. I think it was in the market crash of 2008 or whatever that really kind of killed us, and we spent a lot of time in poverty and things like. I mean, childhood wasn't bad. It wasn't too bad, but
you're still here, so
yeah, we're still here. Yeah, we didn't starve. We didn't starve. But yeah, there were a couple years we had to go without some things and whatnot. But I mean, we always had electricity. We always had running water. That never got shut off. The bases were covered.
Right. That's good.
It's just if it's just like 1 year, we weren't gonna have a very good Christmas. Like, hey, that's okay. I was never too big about getting presents anyways. I mean, I enjoyed it, like for sure enjoyed getting things, but if I got 4 things and not 10 things, it didn't make a difference to me.
You weren't a Dudley.
A Dudley, yeah, no, I was not a Dudley.
I did 37 presents this year. Man.
Yeah.
Yes. So where does God fit into this picture for you? At what point during the journey you just laid out do you feel like, was there a certain point when you're like, man, I gotta turn toward him, or was it like a constant pull? What's your experience?
I think that was like, it was slowly progressive over time, because I did have a moment, like it was things in my like how we talked about previously about my selfishness and my nihilism, my hedonism. I dove deep into the world of drugs and alcohol, and just kind of ran off the deep end, so to speak, and just had a lot of destruction in my life. I was always like just preoccupied with death for some reason, and it just kind of like
fascinating thing. Yeah, I know what you mean.
It just kind of like everything just kept spiraling downward, and I saw the patterns. Like I saw all these things. Like all of my friends were either felons or worse, and almost all of them were drug addicts and alcoholics, pillheads. So yeah, it was very easy to just assimilate into that culture when that's all you know.
There. Right.
And so yeah, we were just going through the motions. That's in my teen years, like I started doing drugs and stuff when I was like 13.
Really?
Yeah, so it was like a steady progression. I went up. That's down. But yeah, it was a steady progression down into hell for me, and then it got to the point I turned 18, and then I was out with my job. I got my GED, and then I found out the hard way how third shift kind of like breaks your psychological just a little bit. Like I don't think
nights.
I don't think I'll ever work a job again where I have to be up all night.
Yeah.
You know, like that's like, even though they're like, oh yeah, just get your blackout curtains. Like, no, I had those, and then yeah, you never see the sun.
Right.
You know, that lack of, and being in Ohio anyway, it's a cloud cover most of the day, so it's like whenever you see whenever the sun is out, I'm inside sleeping.
Right.
So it's like,
No,
yeah, no vitamin D contributed a lot to the depression. I was also just, faded all the time. There wasn't a moment. It didn't matter where I was, family gatherings, at my house, at work. Didn't matter. I was drunk, I was high, I was something.
I know that story all too well.
So, yeah, I had no chill, basically.
Yeah,
and it
right.
just
It's interesting. I talked to a counselor last year. Started seeing her around July of 2023, and one of the initial questions she had for me, she was like, "When was the last time you experienced peace?" I was like, "What? Peace? What do you mean peace?"
before I went through puberty.
Right. I don't ever remember being peaceful. Like, there was always turmoil. There was always something, this anxiety-ridden existence, just constantly. I've been accused of being obsessive compulsive and autistic and all these different things.
I've been accused of being autistic.
So who knows? I don't need to be diagnosed. What I think it comes down to, as far as finding peace, for me, I'm never going to get there on my own. I don't know if it's just my chemical makeup, my background, my DNA, whatever it might be. I don't know. But I think as a human, there's no way to ever find true peace by trying to accomplish that with your own methods.
Yeah.
You need something bigger than you. You need something...
'Cause human beings are ultimately fallen, and
Right.
we live in a fallen world, so anything that man makes is ultimately fallen.
Right. Yeah, if you're not being called and pushed by God, whatever you're doing, maybe you'll end up in a situation, not that everything that starts off on the wrong pretense is just bad, but there's something powerful about being in the right channel where you're supposed to be. And I think that's when the peace kicks in. At least in my experience. I've only experienced peace in the past couple months, ever since I've started inviting God into my life and really trying to figure out how to have a relationship with Him. And for me, it was all about surrender. Like I was mentioning before, like I never understood the mechanics of it. Like, how do you do that? How do you get to that point? How I see all these people that are talking about it, and I understand what they're saying, but how do I do that? Couldn't wrap my head around it. And I've heard that people that approach life from a more analytical perspective and need to understand things are going to have a hard time building a relationship with God, because part of it is something you're not ever going to understand. There's nothing there. And it's maybe if I was more in tune with my emotions, which is another thing I struggle with.
Yeah.
When they're high and low, I see those, but otherwise it's just flat. Like I don't know. I guess hence the accusation of being autistic. But anyway.
Yeah. I think that for me, it had a lot to do with the amount of like drugs I was taking. It was just kind of like,
true.
It was shutting me off, essentially. I was becoming numb.
Yes. And you're not just shutting. So when you're numbing yourself like that, it's like, yeah, you're numbing yourself from your, what would you say, your spirit, because there's a part of you that's there, and what is that remains?
Well, I think it does have to do with that little conscience, like
Right.
the voice in the back of your head that tells you right or wrong and things like that. It's constantly screaming at you that like something's wrong, and you don't, especially if you don't know what's wrong, or if you can't picture, like if you can't like look at the overall picture of like how you got from A to B, and then you're just in B and you're in the deep end, and you're just like, you got this thing, like the alarm bells are all going off,
right?
But you just can't understand how to fix it. Then that's what you want to shut up, because it's just
Right.
like, just let me be alone for a minute.
Incessant noise in your head.
So I think, yeah, when you look for the distraction, or you look to numb yourself out, you're trying to shut off the alarms, even though it's like there's a fire in the basement,
Right.
it's spreading
Like,
to the
I don't
rest
wanna
of your
deal
house.
with that right now.
Yeah.
Trying to sleep. it's too smoky in here.
Yeah, like, calm down. Like, I'm aware, just leave me alone.
Right.
You know,
right.
like...
And that's that, for me, being able to understand that all of that system, that part of us that is constantly alerting and, you know, telling us all these different things that are happening around us, that's just one thing that you can focus on. But you can shift your consciousness back further and further and further to the point where you're just observing yourself, observing your feelings, and it's like, well, I don't really want to focus on that right now. Yeah, that's happening, and if there's a fire, I need to deal with that. But if it's not something life-threatening, I can pay attention to something else. I can put my focus where I want it to be, in a direction that I want to go in. Like you were saying earlier, if you want to accomplish something, you need to have a goal, reverse engineer it back to where you are now, and then find the best path to get to that goal. And in order to do that, you have to take control of your focus. Otherwise, where are you going? How are you ever going to get anywhere if you're not deliberately taking steps towards something? It doesn't mean that you're going to ultimately end up where you want to go, but you're going to keep getting closer. And that seems to be, you know, it's all about the journey, right? Mm-hmm. It's not about getting to where you need to be. It's about navigating what's available to you to best get to that goal.
Yeah, and the ironic and counterintuitive aspect of goal making is that once you make the goal, effectively your life's over, you know?
Right. So you got to have a goal before you meet your goal. Like, all right, what's my next goal before you finish this goal?
Yeah, which is why we chose the goal of the homestead, because it's a series. It'll never be done.
Yeah, there'll always be puzzles to solve.
Yeah, there'll always be problems. There'll always be challenges, and that's where the real bread and butter are, or the meat and potatoes, whatever you want to call it. That's where the true joy in life is found, is in the process of solving problems. Like, the steps that you take towards achieving a goal are the necessary things to sustain you.
Right. Yeah, if you can tie all that in.
Once you reach the goal, like, oh, like, I'm saving up for this nice car, you know, you're all about it, you're happy, but once you achieve the car, well, now what? Like, I'm happy for a little bit, you know, maybe I'm happy for a year, maybe I'm happy for 2 years that I got this really nice car, but law of entropy, it's going to break down, you're going to have more problems with it, and, you know, like, you had already achieved your goal, and now you're stuck with this money pit. You know? Like, So
would you say having goals is important, but more importantly, it would be ideal to have a living goal, something that
adapts and changes over time with you, that you're always working towards.
You're always working towards that.
I would say, that is probably...
It's like that's the pinnacle of human conquest.
Mm-hmm. There's always the next thing, and you know, your brain's always really good at finding new problems. So even if you perceive that there are no problems, there's always something wrong.
Well, then you can analyze that in itself, right? Why do I think there's no problems?
That's a problem.
And that, you know, again, just for my spiritual journey recently, what's been the most exciting part of it that I've encountered is this. Finally having the mechanics to surrender, of stepping back and allowing things to happen that I'm not in control of, because we can only control what we do, what we say. Outside of that, trying to micromanage everything, which is something I've definitely been guilty of and still do, but being able to step back from that and let things happen and just get out of the way has been, it's so freeing. It's so, and knowing that the creator of the universe has a good plan for you if you just let it happen and stop trying to force things into, well, it's got to happen right here, right now. Why isn't it happening? Yeah. But look at all the amazing stuff that's around you. Like, there's always something beautiful to be a part of, to perceive, to interact with. It's...
See, but God doesn't do all of the work either. I mean,
He
expects us to do a lot of it.
Yes.
So, like, for instance, I've always thought about it like the opportunities and things like that. Like when you have an opportunity staring you directly in the face, you know, like if you can mark, you know, check the boxes and know that this is, you know, what you can perceive to be from God, then you make the moves to try and grab that opportunity. But a lot of the times we just kind of we watch them pass by, or we don't even see them at all.
Yeah.
You know, God's sitting there, here you go, and you're just like,
you're too busy.
it just
like
flies past your face because you're looking over there.
Yeah, right.
You're distracted, you know, like you're just wasting time.
Right.
You know, like you're numbing yourself out with the drugs. You can't hear when God speaks. You're distracting yourself with YouTube videos. You can't see the opportunities in front of you because you're just laying in bed doing nothing.
Yeah, and that it takes me back to the point I was trying to make. The surrendering and being on this journey is just so exciting because I think I made that point, but I'm just it's so thrilling to think that no matter what happens, I'm going to be in the place I need to be because I'm deliberately looking for these opportunities, like you're saying, and moving toward where I'm being compelled to be. For the longest time, I fought against that. I'm like, well, I'm trying to do this right now. I can't focus on that. But as something opens up and presents itself to you, especially if it's in line with where you've been called, or where you what you've had your eyes on, or what your heart's been set on, why wouldn't you move in that direction, even if it doesn't fit into your preconception? You know, it's
see, I think that brings us to the next part of the story, which is answering the call.
Yes.
You know, everybody gets that. The Abrahamic call to adventure. Everybody gets that, and you have to move when God says move.
Right.
So, yeah, and I do believe, like, when God speaks, he speaks in various ways. One of those ways is definitely through dreams.
Yes.
So, yeah, this was kind of like a big turning point for me, I guess, in my spiritual journey, at least. Because, like, I had already gone to the point, you know, like, what was it? I said that I got into all the drugs and stuff when I was like 13. But it escalates. Like you just start off with like one little thing here, you know, maybe like, cause you know, you just maybe smoking marijuana like once a week or something like that. And then it escalates. And then suddenly you're in some dude's garage somewhere doing cocaine, and
isn't that weird? Yeah. Who are you? Where am I? What am I doing? Yeah, I remember having moments like that,
5
like
beers
these little
deep.
flashbacks, like suddenly like your brain turns on or something. You're like, whoa, what am I doing here? Like, I'm in this place, and then, oh wait, but yeah, all right.
Yeah,
then
but
you're back
this,
in it again. But it's such a...
But yeah, so progressively from there, by the time I turned, I think I was 19, you know, I had seen all of the patterns pop up where, like, I see the position that my parents are in. You know, we've always been poor, and like in that spot they've always been struggling, so that's just kind of par for the course, you know. Like I'm just going to do nothing but just struggle my whole life for nothing,
just accepting that
to always be a slave and just to never be free of anything. So it's just like it keeps cycling downward to the point where, I mean, I had one terrible night where I was in the garage about to kill myself, and I was so out of it. I was just drunk beyond belief. I was high off various things, and I was sitting there. I had my pocket knife or whatever, and I was just gonna slice my wrists open. But just this small voice of some kind just was like, just go to bed. So I was like, okay. You know, it was like 3 a.m. It was just not... You know, I had been up all day. I got up pretty early for the job I was, but I had already texted my boss. I was like, I'm not coming in tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know? So I just went up and went to bed, and that night I had a dream. It was very vivid, very, and I remember it all to this day. It was so many years ago, but it was so, like, crystal clear was that what was it? I was looking on a scene. It was just beautiful landscape, this big, massive hill.
I see it. I was saying.
But yeah, it was
Paint
just
that picture.
This big, massive hill. The sunset going behind it. I saw a man, a woman, and their child standing on top of the hill, watching the sunset. I heard water in the background, and now every time I stand on my back deck, that's what I see.
Right. That's awesome. And is that
I think that was the wake-up call for me. That was God being like,
there's a plan for you. You can have this.
This is your life isn't confined to this here and now, to this spot. Like,
right.
Take this dream as my promise.
Right.
And God has fulfilled all of his promises.
That's amazing. It's at the time, were you...
At the time,
where were
I
you
wasn't
at with your relationship? Was this before Cinnabon?
Yeah, this was before that.
Okay.
So at the time, I was not aware of like God's involvement in it. I was just like, man, that was a crazy dream.
Right.
But after that, it
stuck
just
with
like,
you, yeah.
But it stuck with me, and I always had this sense of just like I'm not giving up here. And like it was after that I made the choice to go to college. You know, because I was like, something needs to change.
Right. You need to make
like
some
I need to seize the opportunities I have. I need to create my own pathway forward just right now, because like right now as things are happening, like I'm just stuck, I'm not moving, nothing's happening, can't save money, you know, like all this stuff. So I made one life altering decision, you know, which is the same.
Stay alive.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing that God called Abraham to do. It's just to leave the house of your father and come to the land that I will show you.
Right.
Boom.
That's amazing.
That was what it was. That was exactly what it was. I answered the call to adventure. I went out to show the land, to the land where God called me to, and that's for real, because I move out to college. That's where I met Kayla.
Okay. Yes.
Right. Then we go on this adventure to the city. Like, okay, so the call is back the other way, to the woods. Get these issues, like just onset, you know, like eating healthier.
Right. So
Like
you're progressively...
Yeah, it was one thing after another, but it was all like natural circumstance of like God orchestrating the events in my life to tell me, hey, you're getting closer.
And you were finally open to that. And it's like, I wonder, is that a consistent thing throughout all of our lives? We're always getting shown like, here, this is what you need to do. You can go this way. I mean,
you know what? I think God has always been there for me, regardless of whether or not I believed, or even like, because before, like, I never denied the existence of God. I just always was like, I don't know if Christianity's it. I don't know if, you know, what if God is not what the Bible says, or anything like that. But I now know that that's different.
Yeah.
The Bible is 100% true.
Basic instructions before leaving Earth.
Yeah. And so, where was I at? What was I saying?
The Bible is 100% true. Christianity was something you were struggling with.
Yeah. So it was always like little, and it's funny because it's seemingly little things here and there that push me or turn events to makes it, because like I know that God has a plan for me, and if I were to travel down the road that I wanted to go, that's not what God's plan was, and that won't fly with God. So he's just like, well, I'm gonna put in this block so you go a different direction, and I'm gonna slowly lead you back to me. You know, just
and you can push through it if you want. If you
just like with the, you know, like how you as a father put up the parameters for your children so that they go, you know, that like that's the main point of discipline, is to not squash the energy, it's to redirect the energy. So that's basically what God as a father was doing for me throughout my life, was putting up these parameters that I just, you know, didn't notice. I would just bounce off of them. You know,
couldn't attribute it at the time to that's what it was, but looking back, you're able to
picture this scenario, right?
Yeah.
One of my friends that was out at college, he went to college with me, but he dropped out like after a couple of months. He didn't go for very long. So there was a day, of course, like I'm sitting in my college dorm or whatnot, still like in my depressed state. I'm still drinking, I'm still doing drugs, you know, like you can get the Jews out of Egypt, but you can't get, you know, you got to get the Egypt out of the Jews, you know? That type of thing. Like you can leave your slaver, but you're going to take all of the practices until you unlearn those.
The scars are always with us.
So this picture is I'm sitting in my dorm, and I get this phone call, right? And I pick it up, it's him. He's like, hey, he's like, you should move in with me. And I was like, okay. He was like, yeah, we got an extra room, like real cheap. At the time, I was paying $250 a month for that room. So I was like, that is actually a lot better than what I'm paying for this room and board. So I was like, that's a really good opportunity. I think I'm going to do that. So I was like, yeah, I'm in, definitely. Like, I'll get my he's like, yeah, we move you in as soon as possible. And I was like, cool. I mean, the semester was almost up. So I was like, hey, once the semester's up, I won't renew. I'll just go live there, but I'll still come to class. And it was right down the street. Like, it was very close. So I was like, this is perfect, you know? Like, I was like, this is great. Literally 1 hour later, 1 hour later, safety services bust down the door and they raid our apartment because, like, obviously I would just do the drugs in the dorm room and whatnot, and that was their policy: no drugs, no alcohol or whatnot. But they were planning this for a while. They knew, so they kicked me out of the dorms that day. Yeah. So I was like,
that's wild. And then you
So this is what I'm talking about, is like, what are the, like, okay, so put this into perspective. If I would have gotten kicked out of the dorm without a backup plan like that, right? Like if he wouldn't have called me up, like,
then what?
Then what? I got nowhere. I got no plan. I got no knowledge of how to make it. Yeah, I would go back home, be back in my old job.
You'd be back 3 a.m. staring at a knife, thinking about following the lines, you know? It's not...
But that's not what God had planned.
Right. You had a way out. It was all... You were given what you needed before you even knew you needed it.
Yes. And this was before I met Kayla. So I was living in this house, like, and I hadn't met Kayla yet. So I wonder if that was like, well, no, you can't leave yet.
Yeah.
You got to meet this woman. You gotta facilitate this relationship. Like, you need to do something here. Go this way, son.
Yes. Stop that. Go over here.
Yeah. So it was literally like something was going to happen that would send me back. And Isaac got the inspiration. He's like, move in with me.
That's so cool. And then, so from there, were you you were in school at the time still? You were saying?
I was going for network security, so it was computers and digital networks and things like that.
Oh yes.
Software installation, a little bit of programming.
Cool.
But it wasn't for me, because in college, obviously, you learn what the job entails.
Sure.
So then I was like, ooh.
Yeah,
There's a bunch of office.
Spend all my time doing that.
Yeah, I was like, I like to be up and active, and you mean to tell me I'm gonna have to sit in a cold office, like a 10x10 room for like 16 hours of the day, figuring out what the hell's going on with the machine? Like, I don't.
For the next how many years am I doing this?
And I've always had this like creative tendency, and computers are very logical, only working one way type of deal. So it's like, if I'm gonna troubleshoot, like, I can't just come up with a creative solution to fix a problem on a computer. It's got to be done the right, proper way, and I'm just not good with memorization. I'm not like...
Yeah, if you're working in a system that has already been established, you got to follow those rules, and there's not a lot of room for creativity.
Yeah, not a lot of room.
But if you're designing the system...
And Lord knows, I'm not a rule follower.
Rules are meant to be broken.
Yep.
Ah, man. Yeah. So you answered the call. You've achieved that dream that you were shown. And have you had more dreams since then? Or is the dream, it's ongoing, like you were saying? You have this living goal that you're going to continue to shoot for.
I think it's the latter. It's that one. But because looking back, I don't know if I really know if I've had any dreams since then that were just life-changing like that.
Impacting.
You know, like, it's not like now being out here that I just wake up from a dream that I had and I'm like, I need to change my life, you know, like.
Right. Well, you've done a lot of the life-changing, and it's...
I mean, it's still a work in progress, that's for sure.
I think the moment that stops is the moment you die, right?
Yes.
So...
Yes.
Craziness.
Yep.
Well, it's a beautiful thing, you know, just being able to have an understanding that we're loved, and we have the ability to love thanks to Jesus. You know, like, that's something that I haven't understood until really recently as well. Just love was like this thing that was just there, you know, you just love. But is that a natural Do animals experience love, do you think? Or is that something special?
I do think that there's two different
humans?
ways of looking at love. There's the feeling sense, the love that you feel for someone, something, But then there's also, like, the love you express. So, like, for instance, you could see this in a marriage, right? You don't always love the person you're with.
Not from second to second, sure.
Yeah, not second to second. Like, if you're relying on a feeling to sustain your marriage, you're going to fail, and you're not. Sure. Yeah, like, so it's the
decision.
It's the actions that partake that you do out of love for the other person, and love being, you want the best for them.
Right.
You want them to succeed just as much as you want you to succeed.
Right.
And despite how they make you feel sometimes, you still want the best. And then there's that expression of love and not so much the feeling. Because the feeling, you're going to have a feeling, you're going to go away.
Right.
It's...
The trouble that I've had with that is I have all of those thoughts, but then the actions that are being shown to Jackie, my wife, is she doesn't see the actions that are happening that I'm caring for her or hadn't for a long time. So it's a story for another time.
You have your own love language.
Right, yeah, for sure. And existing in my own head, and I feel like I have a lot of conversations with her without her being there. And then I'm, like, assuming a lot of things, and that always gets you into trouble.
Yeah, so, absolutely. You don't want to assume what she's... Because I do that a lot. Like, I assume what Kayla's going to say in a scenario, and I just automatically get mad at her. And then I'm like this. And then I find myself, like, projecting these, like, and then you're going through day-to-day conversations. She might not be feeling the way that you're feeling. She's probably, like, thinking everything's all fine, and then you just are, like... short with her, or like, and you just
like, where is this even coming from?
Yeah, where's this even, something that you haven't done yet. I thought about this
earlier. I dreamed about it, and you were mean to me.
I dreamed about it. You were mean to me. Yeah. Definitely, it does come from that type of, like, you can get lost in your own thoughts to the point where you're creating the problem that hasn't happened and probably wouldn't happen if you would have just said something.
Right. Yeah. Communicate. Imagine that. Isn't that crazy? Communicating is the key, and it's so hard because it's sometimes you feel like you're communicating, but you have to remember who you're talking to and how they process information and how you sound, what your body language is doing.
This actually gets me in trouble a lot because I'm always asking Kayla for definitions on things, because what she would assume is one thing is not what I would assume that thing is, and vice versa. So when she's just like, I don't think, like on the topic of communication, like if she was like, hey, we need to do a better job of communicating. And I was like, well, what's lacking in communication? Like that, doing a better job of... Let's define what is actually going wrong here. Because when you say it's just communicating, like, it's very broad.
Right.
That's very, like, well, what do you mean by communicating?
And that's the classic male-female dynamic that I've heard about so much, and you probably have too. Men are always trying to, let's solve this problem. What is the issue? Let's isolate it, let's define it, let's solve that problem. Women just want to
just talk about
the problem. Not that they don't just talk about it and don't do anything.
Or maybe it's
they want to
communicate.
About it. They want to share how they feel and see how you feel, and then they feel connected. Yeah. And that's the communication that I've always had to figure out. Had trouble figuring out, and have had to get to that point. Still not doing great with it, but I continue to do better because I'm mindful of the communication, and I'm like, all right, if she's talking to me, it's important to her. I need to listen and try and understand. And something that I've heard a couple times through different books is when you're having a conversation with your wife, you can ask, if she's asking questions or talking about something that she might, you ask her, is this something that you would like me to help you with? Do you want some solution with, or do you just want me to listen?
Okay.
That simple thing is like, oh yeah, obviously, but it's so hard not to just get right into it, and I do this all the time. I'm like, let's skip the talking, let's get right to the end where you tell me what the problem is and I can fix it. And
I want to get back to you liking me. I don't like this not liking me thing.
Right. Why are we even fighting? What do you mean communicate? We are communicating. Yeah, it's, I've had that constantly, and I really look forward to digging into it more on the next installment of guys in the creek.
Yes.
I'd love to continue today, but it's about that time. God is good.
Yes.
Prayer is powerful, and we all have the ability to call on His strength. He is our Father, after all. Thanks, Daddy.